We want to get into a conversation about, the opposition politics, succession, and of course, the roadmap as far as 2027 is concerned. With us in studio to have this conversation is Abubakar Zein Abubakar. He is the head of presidential campaign, Wiper Patriotic Front, and he's a former MP with EALA. Mheshimiwa, welcome to Radio Generation.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
I was just asking you earlier on, and you said that Wiper Democratic Party changed to Wiper Patriotic Front.
Okay, so in a historical context,
yes,
it used to be known as the Orange Democratic Movement Kenya.
Yes.
And then it branded itself into Wiper Democratic Movement.
Okay.
And now it has assumed a new focus.
Right.
20 years after in its existence, is now branded as the Wiper Patriotic Front.
Right.
Yes.
And have the colors changed? Am I still like it was blue, red, white?
The colors have remained the same.
Uh-huh.
It is an ambition and an aspiration,
right,
to work with Kenyans to establish a front that seeks to save our nation.
Right.
That's why it's called Patriotic Front.
Mm-hmm.
In the old colloquial of freedom fighting,
yes, you
knew that one of the desire was always to build a critical mass of people to liberate themselves.
Okay.
Right.
And the umbrella is still the symbol.
Absolutely.
Sawa.
Protect us from the elements, gives us shade, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. It's a good thing. So let's talk about your position, first of all, as the head of presidential campaign.
Yes.
Maybe you can give us an insight as to what that role is all about.
Okay. So the idea is that if you're running a presidential campaign,
yes,
you need to have two fundamental principles: structure and organization. So the Presidential Campaign Secretariat is designed to bring that structure and organization, and being able to engage with Kenyans about the transformation of our nation.
All right.
So that Secretariat is a backstopping institutional framework for delivering the objective of transformation of Kenya and to promote the presidential bid by His Excellency Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, and to ensure that the party play an important role and work with Kenyans to get enough support to establish stable legislative infrastructure that supports the presidency, and or work with other like-minded driven parties that share common goals.
Right.
That means that you become a cog in negotiation of coalition building, as well as the desire to establish a transformative, effective government.
All right. Yeah. Currently, Wiper is within the Azimio. Am I still right on that part? Again,
reality tells Kenyans. Everybody knows that Azimio is in its last legs.
Okay.
There is if you are already negotiating to set up a new coalition, it means you will have to start the process of vacating the coalition you are in. So that process is happening. Okay. It's a transitional period of moving away from Azimio into a new framework that will bring not only the united opposition, but the critical mass of Kenyans.
Let's talk about the united opposition.
Yes.
What exactly is the united opposition all about? Who are the members of this united opposition?
So the beginning point is that Kenya is divided into two, generally speaking.
All right.
Kenya is divided into two. There are those who support the current regime, who we believe are in a very small minority.
Okay.
And then the majority of the people of Kenya are opposed, that they want change. They are opposed to this regime and they want change. So the idea of a united opposition is to work with all those who are opposed to this regime and are working for transformative change. Underline the word change.
Okay.
When we talk about Wantam, people think it's just a slogan. We are talking of the aspirations and desire of Kenyans to change their situation, to change their lives, but also to have the restoration of hope in our nation.
Okay.
So the United Opposition is the political end or the political arm of those who are desirous to bring change in our nation.
Okay.
Yeah. So it transcends politics. It goes into civil society, religious and faith-based communities, workers, and so on and so forth.
All right.
So it's the collective. Yeah.
I'm going to mention some parties and let me know if they're in this united opposition.
Yes.
Of course, there's Wiper.
Yes.
There is DCP.
Yes.
PLP.
Yes.
By Martha Karua.
Yes.
There's DAPK.
Yes.
By Mheshimiwa Eugene.
Yes.
Those are already 4.
You should add Jubilee there.
Jubilee, sorry, yes.
DP.
DP.
Yes.
All right. So there are several, basically.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm also a member of the technical team of the joint opposition.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. What position do you hold there?
I am the head of the technical team.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice. Good stuff. Now, as far as the parties are concerned, and I'm sure there are others probably who will join you as the time goes by.
Yes.
When we talk about the opposition, the opposition has got as long as you're not in government, you're in opposition, basically. And there are other parties that are coming up, and we can see also other leaders. For example, we have the likes of Senator Omtata.
Yes.
Is he part of the united opposition with the former Chief Justice Maraga?
Not formally, but there are talks behind the scenes.
Okay.
There are talks. So there are those who, for example, Senator Omtata has got an exploratory committee on his presidential campaign. So unless you go through that process, you may not want to go into full negotiations with others.
Okay.
But there are also those who currently are occupying positions that if they were to readily identify with us, they lose those positions. But they're talking to us behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So as I said, look at that dichotomy, that there are those who support the regime and everybody else who oppose the regime. So as far as we are concerned, everybody else who oppose this regime is a potential partner, is a potential person who we can work with.
Okay.
Yeah.
From expert, because I'm not an expert in politics, but from the the experts and the analysts that I've sat with,
Yes.
On and off air,
Yes.
one thing they say is that if the opposition is going to beat the sitting president, the incumbent, they have to come up with a solid solution, a solid strategy, and a solid individual who's going to be the flag bearer.
Yes.
And so far as it is, from a voter's point of view, I do not see that person.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's interesting when you say that. It's expected for you to say that because you want to be an independent commentator. You want to be fair to all sides.
For sure.
But for some of us who have been at this engagement in terms of political processes and why politics matter, we believe the reason why I'm here and the reason I occupy the positions that I do is because I truly believe that Mheshimiwa Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka is the best suited person to take us to the next level, to invest in healing our past, to unite our nation, and to start a journey of embracing a vision for a better Kenya for all of us, based on principles. So if you talk about these things, we can talk about the fundamentals. So if you allow me, I'll talk about what the fundamentals are.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So to us, our deep dive analysis, and some of us have been doing analysis for a long time because we've been involved in national processes for a long time. But it comes down to simple 3 basic scenarios. So the first scenario for us is one which explains what is the problem that we have. And we call this a crisis scenario. This crisis scenario basically explains that Kenya was born out of crisis, right?
It was.
Colonialism, and particularly settler colonialism, creates a crisis. Wherever they experiment with settler colonies, it is based on a framework of oppression to start with. So alienation of land, subjugation of the people, using state power to enforce foreign-based, interest-based policies.
Okay.
So we were born out of that. And we hold the view that on the whole, if you look at our history, we have had these crises fundamentally based on two things. One, a crisis of legitimacy. So that if you look at almost all governance systems that we've had, they suffer from a crisis of legitimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, a crisis of confidence in public and state institutions.
Mm-hmm.
So if you start from that premise, then you understand that the state is not based on the sovereign power of the people.
Mm-hmm.
The state is based on an imposed governance system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why I think majority of Kenyans wanted us to establish a constitutional framework based on fundamentally our first principle is sovereignty of the people, Article 1 of our constitution. And we wanted to deconstruct all these other forms of power based on the presidency or on the parliament or on the judiciary or a clique. These days we have a fashionable word we call elite consensus. And that elite consensus is actually contradictory to Article 1 of our constitution, which is people-based. So these crises has made the state to be on a crisis management mode throughout, with the exception of a few moments in our lives. One of them is independence. You know that there was euphoria there, and people were hopeful. And that led to disappointment very quickly, alienation very quickly, and oppression very quickly. Another example is 2002. A BBC survey postulated that we were the most optimistic people on earth.
Yeah.
And that dissipated very quickly. So I think one of the things that we did, which is very important in the constitution making process, said we must deconstruct this crisis model.
Okay.
And we must have a progressive constitution that seeks to deconstruct this process of oppression, and then quickly establish a people-based transformative framework. So that's, in a summary form, that is what the crisis model is. And every time there is pressure on the crisis mode, quickly elites come together and make a bargain, and then they agree and say, okay, let us deflate the pressure to change. Let's have a deal. Let's share power.
Okay.
But our experience with that kind of crisis management has indicated to us that is not sustainable. It dissipates a little bit and then comes back quickly.
All right.
The second scenario is that because you don't have legitimacy, if you're in power, then you rig elections. You can't get consent of the people. You know that if you had a free and fair and credible elections, you lose big time. So what do? You organize to rig the elections and or use of violence.
Okay.
The third scenario, I'm being very quick to just go through these scenarios.
We urge you to take your time and explain it clearly, because we need to understand, as if I may point from whence you come, so that when we've understood,
yes,
we can then pose a question.
Thank you very much for the attitude.
Yes.
So, if you look at evaluations of elections in Kenya,
yes,
there have only been 2 elections that are considered to be credible across the board. All other elections have had issues from colonial time. These 2 elections are the elections going into independence, and it doesn't mean that there wasn't attempts to rig.
Yeah.
But on the whole, it reflected the will of the people.
Okay.
And the other one is the one on 2002.
All right.
But all other elections have issues. It's very, very serious issues. And you would look at these elections, and you will see that continually people are losing faith in elections as a process of bringing change into their society. And if you go by numbers, then you will realize that in the last elections, about 8 million people didn't turn up.
Yeah.
8 million people didn't turn up. That's a very significant number. With the exception of countries that have laws to enforce that participating in election is mandatory.
Australia.
Yes, Australia is one of them.
Oh, it's a must.
Yes.
My friend.
It's actually a criminal offense if you don't.
This way, you will vote. In Kenyan terms, upende.
Usipende.
Yes.
That's true.
Okay.
Yes. But I am talking about motivation of people to come out because they have faith in the processes that my vote will count. Okay. Now, if you look at surveys that have been done in the last 5 years, for example, there is consistency, very, very clear consistency that there are certain patterns you can discern. One, that majority of Kenyans believe that Kenya is on the wrong trajectory. Majority of Kenyans believe that things are going to get worse before they get better. Majority of Kenyans believe that democracy is under attack. Majority of Kenyans believe that if you look at all social economic indicators, that we are not doing well on employment, on cost of living, on investments, on any credible fundamental you look at. Majority of Kenyans believe we are on the wrong track. So what does that mean to us? What that means to us is that Kenyans desire and yearn for change. They want meaningful change in their lives.
Wait, Mheshimiwa, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
This thing that they desire, do they know the cost of it? Do they know what they must do to actually get it? Or do they think that the path was already straightened for them and that it should sort of like just happen?
Yeah, so the answer to that, one of the things I've done in my life, I was the founding director of VORAIA, the National Civic Education Program and Engagement. And we have reflected, and it shows, that every time Kenyans are inspired enough to exercise their agency, we make a big difference. It doesn't matter if it is the fight against colonialism. It doesn't matter if it is a war to reintroduce multi-party politics in Kenya. It doesn't matter if it is a desire and a consensus that we need a new constitutional framework based on a complete overhaul of the past and the status quo. So when we organize enough as Kenyans, it doesn't matter if it is a Gen Z's uprising. So if there is that agency, we come out and make a difference. What the challenge is how to sustain that momentum. That's where the challenge is. The challenge is how to follow through.
Are those the only challenges, really?
No, there are many others.
You see why I ask is this. There appears to be a reluctance by Kenyans to hold leaders that are closest to them to account. Forget the presidency, that's far away. I'm talking about MCAs. I am talking about MPs. What I mean by this is, these are people who are far easier to access if you're a voter in the country than all the other fellows that you may think you want to hold to account. If we didn't have a devolved system of government, then I would not be saying what I'm saying. Our problems begins at the ground, at where the lowest common denominator of governance and leadership begins. Now, how do you hold such people to account? Because MCAs have the power to change the lives of the constituents of their counties, because every county in this country gets money. And problem number one, we are told over 60% of the money that the counties get goes into paying people's salaries. It means money that could have gone into the very developments that would then help change the lives of these people goes where it shouldn't go. And yet, The citizens seem fine with it. Or maybe they are not fine, but they are loath to take any action. So you wait for an opportunity like the one presented by the Gen Zs, and then it fizzles out. And all the tenets that you mentioned about follow through and so forth are then made manifest. And yet, the local MCA in the rural place that I come from is probably my relative, it's probably somebody I know. But I will not hold that person to account. I will not ensure that this person guarantees that whatever it is that is planned for that little nook and cranny that I come from, that we get what we get.
So, my brother City, you are defining the governance crisis. That's what you're doing. You're defining the governance crisis.
So I'm making your life easier here.
And you are saying,
Yes.
you are agreeing with me,
I am.
that this crisis, this governance crisis, needs to be handled. Let me give you a few examples from the case you have given.
Yes.
Let me start with the 60%. It varies, but you're correct. And that is illegal. It's unconstitutional.
It is.
You cannot expend money for recurrent budget to that threshold. It's illegal. It's unconstitutional. We have Auditor General reports that have indicated and have specified who are the culprits. Culprits have been identified. The framework for holding these culprits accountable is the National Legislative Framework, and particularly both the National Assembly and specifically the Senate. And these people are brought before the Senate, and Senate write reports. They are even sued in many cases. My brother Umtata is always in court suing people like that, and he has sued his county a number of times. And you get a court order, and the executing arm of government, the executive, that is supposed to implement that court order, ignores it. Right? So it's not a vicious circle. Part of this problem is political awareness and civic education, part of it. The second part of it is to create linkages between their lives and how public resources are budgeted for and are utilized. But there is a third element which is absolutely important. We are talking about the rule of law and constitutionalism. So if you have a head of state who championed the rejection of that constitution, he has never acknowledged in public and said, I was wrong. Now I've taken an oath to defend, to implement, to respect, to promote this constitution. And then you expect that person to uphold the rule of law. Then there is a problem there. But let me give you other examples from other jurisdictions. Throughout history of humankind, it doesn't matter where you start from. Where you have oppressive systems, ultimately those oppressive systems face resistance and overthrow by the people. It doesn't matter which epoch you're talking about. In fact, the things that were started in Kenya, when they go to Sri Lanka, they did the job there and finished the job. Right? When it go to Bangladesh, they did that.
Nepal.
When Nepal, Madagascar. So, City, my brother, you know these things. Huh? This, first of all, one of the mistakes we make is that we think that resistance and overthrowing oppression is, we do it, then we leave it to people who come into government to do it. No, it doesn't work like that. Yeah? So we should be inculcating and internalizing the idea of eternal vigilance.
How do we do this?
I said part of it is political education. Part of it is what was one of the fundamental reasons. By the way, I had great privilege to be one of the framers of our constitution.
Yes.
So what was one of the driving force behind evolution is what we call the subsidiarity principle, which basically means, in simple terms, people who are most affected by a decision should participate in making that decision. Bottom line, that's what we're saying. So that if you're talking about the devolved system, no matter how you design it, people at the lowest level should be able to exercise their sovereign power. You remember when we talk about Article 1, it says sovereign power of the people is exercised both at national and county level. But if you ask people at the devolved level, how do you exercise sovereign power at devolved level? It's these things that I'm talking about, that you participate in the politics, you participate in electing people, but you also, more importantly, participate in holding accountable those you elect. It's not a blank check. You're going to do whatever you like for 5 years, and we're dummies waiting for you to deliver things for us. So at a philosophical level, we decided deliberately, in terms of design and architecture, that we are not going to have a chapter called Directive Principles of State Policy. We are going to include those values in every substantive chapter. So if you go to our constitution, every substantive chapter has a vision, has values, has philosophy, also has an implementation framework. There are only few chapters or few aspects of this constitution where the implementation framework was removed. But you know this, my brother, that, for instance, we said the three arms of government conceptualization is not adequate to resolve Kenyan governance problems. So we had a fourth dimension, which we call constitutional commissions and independent officers. And they have also been captured. So the reason why we say Wantam is because the fish rots from the head. If you do not have somebody at the top of all the three arms of government, of all constitutional commissions, who believe in this constitution, and they are willing to be bound by that constitution, and they are willing to promote that constitution, we can't make any progress. And that's the premise behind Wantam. I know some people say, oh, you don't have policies. I am here to talk policies if you like.
Yeah.
But we believe, and this is a premise that we work with, that nothing good will come out of Kenya as long as the current administration is in power.
You know, if that thinking, which sounds really, really, really good, and it's anchored in the reality of our constitution, were to be given the airing it requires and injected with the dosage of truth that it requires, the one term should have begun with Uhuru Kenyatta. Because that is the man who took us along this really perilous path of completely ignoring court orders. I'm picking that particular point. There are others, but this one. And it wasn't once, and it wasn't twice. Okay? So the moment that example is set at the level of the executive, any structure of governance that we speak of stands shaken. The moral rectitude that is required for people to comply, because fidelity to the law is a pact that we as a citizen of this country have. We don't write it down, but we have. We all agree we'll drive on the left side of the road. We agree. You have one person deciding to drive on the right side, we have a problem. We all agree that we will do certain things. It is how the law works. And the moment it is broken at the highest office in the land, unfortunately, the ripple effects are cataclysmic.
I agree. And the only problem with that kind of conceptualization is four things. The first one, you recall that almost all our independent governments were using that philosophy, saying, oh, things were much worse under colonialism. Why didn't people speak during colonialism? Why are you speaking now? That's the first problem. The second problem is that a justification that we should perpetually, today, continue to accept oppression because someone else did it? Which is linked to the first one. But the third one, which is more important, is the call to action. And we are going to say, we are going to stop this. I agree with you. As a nation, maybe we didn't have a critical mass. Some of us, if you check our records, we have been consistent. We have been calling out bad governance all our lifetimes. We have been consistent. And I challenge you, my brother, City, check my record, check the records of other people who have been consistent. There are people who have been consistent on this matter. But the third one, which is a fundamental issue that I agree with you, is that one of the institutional framework that we've established, the first institutional framework by the United Opposition, is the People's Restorative Justice Commission. And what you're saying is important for us to say. We need to go back and look at what went wrong in the past. We are not excusing the past. We will have a framework that, in a very structured way, looks at our past, afford every citizen an opportunity to come and say, my rights were violated in this way. Like you could come and say, during Uhuru's administration, this is what was done. And the commission will look at it. But with a particular philosophical approach, which is a restorative justice. You know, when you talk about transitional justice in general terms, there are many different approaches, and some of them are very problematic because they create new injustices. The reason why we are saying restorative, because it's going, one, to focus on the dignity and restoration of dignity of victims and survivors. Two, it's going to invest in truth-telling and investigations. Three, it's going to invest in restitution to those who suffered and compensation and many other things. But that's a small element into it. Four, and very important, it's going to establish the principle of never again. And there I agree with you, Siti, completely. That once we have said these are the past problems that we've had, now can we develop a framework of never again? And last and most important is memorialization, so that we remember what has happened to us in the past, the good and the bad, and the way to oppose future tyranny and oppression is to memorialize the struggles of the Kenyan people. You will recall that under the Kibaki administration, we wanted to turn Nyayo torture chambers into a place of memory where we could go and explain to future generations this is what happened. But we were not allowed to. But to the credit of Mzee Kibaki, there were other things that he did. He was the first president to unban Mau Mau, a heroic movement to liberate this nation from oppression of colonialism. You'll recall there was a road which is now currently the procession way linking Serena and State House. That road, that land had been grabbed.
It had gone.
It had gone.
It had.
He quietly told those people, Rudisha, and they returned. How you go to face the consequences? KICC was gone. He didn't put a structural thought-through process, although he contributed to the start of the TGRC process. But quietly he rectified the mistakes of the past. So I am agreeing with you on this point, that we are called to call wrong things wrong, no matter who has done them.
You know what I find often interesting is how it is that people like you, who have a clear understanding of right and wrong, are the apologists for people who don't seem to believe in the same things. And I'm going to explain what I mean.
I listen.
Every leader of a major political party has serious rot within their own political parties. Serious. Underline it, circle it in red, and circle
bold.
it again, and bold, and circle it again with green. When I say rot, it is because I understand that political parties are not democratic institutions. They have owners. That much I understand. But the thing that makes this particular conversation real is when you understand that the collective positioning that many people within parties have is, so long as I benefit, we can talk about the rights and the wrongs and the things that are governance based, but we are not really held by those rules, and we don't really need to abide by those rules. You look at, for instance, how people are nominated and how it is people who are party stalwarts or claim to be, but where now our political parties take a complete twist. is the amount of monies that are often involved in these processes. It may not be spoken of loudly, but the citizenry know. So the apathy that we see is because the Kenyan citizen is not necessarily a loud person. We are passive aggressive. We will respond to what we see in ways that are not necessarily physical, not necessarily loud, but the apathy points to what it is that we have seen and how it is that we are responding to it. The people who lead us politically are the worst possible examples of the very things that we are speaking of. Worst. And the people who lead us are not just in political parties. Those habits that begin with political parties are then carried on to parliament. So you find that the interest of the so-called voter, this delegated power that they are given, their actions tell us that their understanding is not that it's delegated, it is theirs by right to do it as they see fit. So, when we talk about the forward movement, in my mind, that's all we're going to be doing, talking about the forward movement. And actualizing the forward movement involves changing the thought process and hence the behavior process of all these political animals that we have. And those are people who are loath to any meaningful change. So that's my view.
Okay, it's as one of the eminent daughter of Kenya said, all views and all dreams are valid. Lupita said that. Mm-hmm. But let me start from...
Actually, she is wrong. Not all dreams and not all views are valid.
I was validating your view. I was saying you have the right to hold that view. But let me start from discussing these things.
My brother,
City. Allow me.
You have time. I'm just saying it is not a view. It is also not a perspective. I am speaking truths and I can give examples to support what I'm saying. But anyway, now state your point.
Since I'm the one who is sitting across you,
yes,
what do you have against me? Because I can start with me and say, look at my record. Point it out. I'm open to public scrutiny.
You I hold in high regard. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I hold in high regard.
That's why I'm saying City. Let me start.
Yes.
That's why I'm starting. One of the things the things that we do wrong, when we try to hold each other accountable, we don't start with the person in the room. Let's start with the person in the room and say, you can speak for yourself, because what you're doing is to put me in a place where I need to evaluate others.
Yes.
I am saying to you, let's start evaluating each other, all of us, the three of us who are here. And since I'm the public figure, you start with me and say, Zain, in this place, there was these accusations, or you have done this or that. I have led a public life for more than 30 years. Public life for more than 30 years. And counting, and could be even close to 40. And I am willing for anybody to point out anything in my life that I've done wrong. Anything. Secondly, what you're saying is a generalization.
Yes, it is.
And I'm looking for particularization and say, let's talk about this. But I'll address the concerns that you have, which many Kenyans do, in this way. If you talk about generally, the organization and political organizational culture in Kenya is a bad culture, right? It's a bad culture, and some of us who have studied this, and you are an eminent public intellectual who knows some of these things. I'll give you a few examples so that people start understanding what are we talking about. So during the liberation struggle against colonialism, our leaders then at some point decided economic saboteuring is valid because of the colonial imperative of oppression and appropriation of our resources and our work without a just framework compels us to do this. So I'll give you several examples. So we started, our forebears started economic saboteuring. And a concept that had to be stepped down to the masses. And the most popular conceptualization was hii mali ya umma ya wazungu wanaita hii mali ni yetu, wameiba mali yetu. So if you take back or you saboteur an economic, burst a pipe or something like that, you are actually doing a heroic act to liberate us. Now you know this city, this is called enrolling. You are being put in a role of struggle. What we didn't do at independence was derolling. To say, okay, now that we are back in control of our resources, stop this. Don't continue destroying the economy because we want to liberate the nation. We have done that. It's now ours. Because we didn't do proper derolling, the mentality that mali ya umma unaweza kufanya, you can do anything with public resources, continued. And we know this. If you want to stop this, it will have to be an ideological battle to do it. And we have seen other examples, Mwalimu Nyerere, what they did, and other places where people did it. Let me give you another example. This sense of mtu wetu, which you made an allusion to, that we don't hold each other accountable properly because some of these people are our relatives, are people who we are working with. Again, that was part of the divide and rule. So what are we saying in essence? And you know this, there's tons and tons of literature around this area, that we needed a proper deconstruction of the past, understanding of the present, and starting to imagine a better future for all of us. Let me give you another example. CT, the fundamental document on economic liberation in Africa, one of them is the Lagos Plan of Action. You know this. And in the Lagos Plan of Action, many of the principles for liberation from our forebearers are there. Self-reliance is one of them. Now, when we talk about self-reliance, a fundamental issue like food security, and to us we go further, we say food sovereignty. Kenya is not food secure. We don't even have security. And we are seeking to live at the level of sovereignty. What did India do? India decided that on matters of national interest, we can declare national emergency. So they can declare national emergency in banning importation of food. Right? They can declare national emergency in banning the export of onions.
Or on ignoring patents.
I mean,
Yes.
when you say that at ideological level, theft of intellectual property, who has mastered this is the big powers, right? It's a big power. Today, as we speak, the President of the United States of America is implementing import substitution as a policy.
That man has done the planet a big favor.
Yeah, so that's what I'm telling you. I'm saying things that our leaders in the 60s were doing in terms of import substitution, which was discredited by these so-called liberal ideas, right? You should trade, yes, under certain terms, but you should survive. You should also secure basic survival. Basic survival. So we're talking about food, for example. But let me go further than that. Let's go back to this regime that we have now. They have sold everything to foreigners. There is not a single system that is working. It's broken. Oppressing local investors at the expense of foreign importation. And everything that has a sniff of procurement, that will become a priority for this regime. So we're talking the same language, CT. And let me finish with this. At any given time, all these leaders you're talking about are torn between two competing groups around them. And I know, I for the longest time...
What are these groups?
Yes, I'll talk about that. I'm coming to that. But I'm saying, I know this. I was an important member of the ODM strategy for more than 15 years. right? There are two competing groups in many of these governments that we have. What I call progressives, which you have ideological underpinnings, they have the right, their hearts are in the right place based on the people's needs and interest. And then you have, if you are to be kind, the elite consensus group. If you are to be kind, the transactional group. But if you are to be precise in defining, mercenaries who are thinking about their personal gain and not the gain of the nation. And I can tell you, based on who is more organized and more powerful, you can tell them. And I'll give you some basic things for Kenyans to know on how to identify which group consists of which people. Those who you hear talking about peace, they talk about stability, they talk about people coming together, they talk about threats to life and property. Those are mercenaries. They come from that group of transactional people. At best, they can be called elite consensus builders. To tell who the progressive are, you'll always hear them talk about justice. First, it will be justice. And then justice becomes the foundation of everything else. So, if you have these competing interests, and I'll tell you this, political parties are reflections of society of Kenya. City, you agree that?
I do.
Yeah? So what we need to do in this transformational journey is not only pointing fingers at others, and you need to demonstrate to Kenyans what are you doing in organizing yourself to transform Kenya. Look at the people who are around these leaders. Look at their language. Look at their property portfolio. Look at what cars they drive. Look at places they go to enjoy themselves. You would know who is genuine and who is not genuine. And let me speak for SKM. I know my time might be up.
No. Oh, we have another hour plus.
That's great.
Yeah.
No.
That's why tumenyamaza uongee.
That's great.
We take this discussion seriously.
Yes.
So do not feel that you're under any pressure.
Thank you, my brother.
Not at least not in this hour.
Thank you.
Please continue.
So we can talk until cows come home, but
Yes.
I'll tell you this. If you talk about SKM, and many people know about SKM, but allow me for this segment to talk about why am I supporting him. One of the things that people don't know is that I was a member of his panel of experts in the NADCO process. And Kenyans ask us, why did you agree to talk? This regime is incorrigible. It's got bad faith. It will never give anything. It's because people are saying, we have seen in Nyarenda, GSU and other security forces going into that neighborhood, bringing out young people, sitting them on the floor, bringing out their parents and relatives, and make them watch while they beat them to pulp, and then put a gun on their head or on their heart and shoot them. And we have forensic evidence that that's what they were doing, shooting in the head or in the heart.
Essentially, it was assassinating these individuals.
Yes. Extrajudicial killings, calling the assassination extrajudicial killings, murder, gross violation of human rights, international crimes, crimes against humanity. We can give them all. They follow a pattern, including a command and control structure. So we've seen these things. So I'll start from the premise of how did I get to meet SKM? I met SKM when we were making the constitution, in the constitution making process. And all our leaders were members of the National Constitutional Conference. And we had debates about the constitution. And him and our late leader, Jacob, their hearts were always in the right place. That I can tell you. It doesn't mean I didn't have differences with Giacomo or SKM. I did, but not of principle and value. it used to be mainly of strategy and tactic. And you can evaluate Jacom's life that way. On principles and values, he was consistent. On strategy and tactics, that you can vary. You can even try to persuade each other on strategy. What is the best strategy? What is the best tactic? Okay. So I've known him since that time. I've known him in code. I've known him in NASA. In NASA, I was the political director of that campaign, and I was in the street team of David Ndii, Adam Zolo, and myself in strategy, right? And I'm known him in Azimio. So what am I saying? Having a span of 40 years of public service and 20 years of top-notch, high-end diplomatic service, there are certain things that are not known about SKM, and as the Americans would say, he may even have a bum rap. So let me give you a few examples of those. There is no leader today alive who has done more for the youth than Kalonzo Musyoka. Kalonzo Musyoka was the chief scout for a long time in this country. And the scout movement and the Girl Guide movement have transformed many young lives and gave them meaning and purpose. And as the chief scout, he played a big role in expanding the scout and Girl Guide movement in the country, repurposing it to be relevant to new challenges in society, and so on and so forth. Let's talk about the revival of the East African community.
Mheshimiwa, nilikukata mahali ulikuwa unaongea, na tukasema tutarudi tuanzie hapo. I was
about to reflect on the contribution of His Excellency Kalonzo Stephen Musyoka,
yes,
to the revival of the East African community.
Right.
Now, after the collapse of the first community, research, reflection indicated that was a big mistake in terms of African Pan-African politics, the integration of our continent, and economic and social transformation. There is an agreed consensus that it was a mistake to collapse the first East African community.
Right.
So Kalonzo Musyoka was the then Foreign Affairs Minister, and he worked very closely with President Moi and President Mkapa and President Museveni and their teams to revive the East African community. Three important things to indicate there. One, based on their high-end negotiations, they had to craft a new treaty for the establishment of the East African community that incorporated lessons that led to the collapse of the first community, right? Both in terms of design and in terms of representative structures. Secondly, that was a very important decision for Africa and for our region, and specifically for Kenya. What has that resulted into? It has resulted into that our biggest trading bloc is East Africa. And within the bilaterals, very quickly after the revival, Uganda became the most important trading partner for Kenya. It even surpassed the collective EU total trade that we were having with them. So, as we speak today, the most important trading bloc for us is the community.
Okay.
And then the third one, which is at a global stage in terms of economic policies, international politics, the building of the East African community has inspired other continental and institutions in the South. So I'll give you an example. The current protocol establishing the Pan-African Parliament borrowed the model of EALA, right? currently, until the protocol is activated, it is members of parliaments in the partner states who nominate those members to part-time sit at the Pan-African Parliament. But once the protocol has sufficient ratification by states in the continent, it will have the same conceptualization of EALA. And when they came to talk to us, we also indicated some of the challenges that we were having in terms of EALA, which they have now put resolution and new ideas to make the Pan-African Parliament even better. I can tell you without any fear of contradiction, if Mheshimiwa Kalonzo did not play the role that he did, Kenya would not have gotten a fair shake at influencing the treaty for the establishment of the East African Community. 3 lessons from those negotiations. One, based on the past experience, they had to work more on a fairer share of benefits accruing from the community, right? Including giving opportunities for infant industries and other countries. The biggest difference between us and the other countries in the East African Community, we were a settler colony. So as a settler colony, the colonialists invested in infrastructure and certain things that gave us competitive advantage. So we, in addressing the question of equality, the new treaty also included the principle of equity and then the principle of solidarity. Although the principle of solidarity have not been mainstreamed. So, for example, Burundi is expected to contribute the same amount of money to the community and the operations of the community as Kenya. Yet there are very many counties in Kenya that have a bigger budget than Burundi. Yeah, so the issue of solidarity and equity is a work in progress. But they had the foresight to inbuild those in the treaty. And if you, lastly, on the treaty issue, if you look at some of the ideas of performance, they also came later on to inform our own constitution making process.
Mheshimiwa, what I've heard you mention as far as Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka is concerned, his CV is quite rich.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
Yes.
But what about...
But I was going to go on and on. Yeah.
So, no, I mean,
go ahead.
And I'm sure he's got a good one and it's quite thick.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the voter on the ground, at the end of the day, that person will need to make a decision. How is your party going to convince that person that this candidate is the best as far as that position of president is concerned?
That is our core business in the Presidential Campaign Secretariat. That's our core business. One of the challenge that faces Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka is that, number one, he's a very private person. So he doesn't blow his own trumpet all the time like other politicians. Number two, and this is fundamental for Kenya, he has this record of going to places where they have broken systems, broken law and order, broken constitutionalism, and work in a very consultative way, in a very participatory way, to find solutions. And that's what happened in Burundi, for example. In Burundi, he was him and Jakaya Kikwete. And you saw that clip when they met at the VIP lounge at the airport. And Mheshimiwa Kikwete was joking. We were the last two standing in the Burundi peace process. Because the late Nelson Mandela and the late Mwalimu Nyerere trusted these two. And said, you help us get us to where there is. So he has this quiet record of reconstruction, of stabilization, of restoration, and of giving communities and societies and countries a new beginning. And that's one of the things that we need as Kenyans. Everybody you talk to and says we can't go on the way we are going. But you also need someone who has the skills of bringing people together. This country needs healing. We've gone through a lot of pain and trauma. and the people are suffering. If you talk about, for example, the so-called internally displaced persons, or the violence of 2007, 2008, majority of them have not gone back to their places of abode. Although they have title to those places, they have not gone back.
Majority or a large number?
Majority.
Majority.
Yes. If the figures I've seen in every study, it's the majority. And what has happened is that these people have moved from their places of ordinary abode. They were moved into IDP camps, and the life was so hard in the IDP camps, they went away and found different places. So some of the recorded evidence in the TGRC process, there's a whole section that deals with IDPs. And it's not just IDPs of 2007, 2008. How many Kenyans know that there were very many people in Lamu, Witu, Tana River who were displaced, and some of them even went to Tanzania and settled around Mpanda and Tanga? So this history of wrong things that have been done and that they have not been ratified. So he has this experience of doing this, of saying, can we develop a design for long-term resolution of things that have held us in the past, so that it can liberate us from the shackles of the past into the present and into working to build better futures for all of us. So he's done this in DRC. He's done this since he was behind the main driving force behind the comprehensive peace agreement of the Sudan. All right. And if you see some of those plans, what the challenge was implementation. So again, moving from planning into implementation, and he has that experience as well. So I'm saying we haven't reintroduced and given His Excellency Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka enough depth. And you know, this city, when you talk about a three-dimensional character, many a time Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka has been defined by others. But now we are giving him the structures and the organizational ability for Kenyans to know Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka in his own terms, but also to know what are his plans for this country. Over and above Wantam. Wantam, we are not moving away from. Wantam, we keep on talking about Wantam because we say this is an existential threat that will not allow us to move on as long as the current regime exists.
City had a question.
You know, everything that Mheshimiwa says is intellectually stimulating, and it is the sort of thing I would like to hear every day when I'm talking about a political leader in the country. But now where my concern comes in is the packaging of all this so that it is sellable, because we have politics ahead of us, and how this will translate into this individual with all these qualities becoming the preferred leader in an electoral cycle, unless we are having an academic debate and he is not going to be a presidential candidate. But I know he is going to be a presidential candidate.
Absolutely.
But then that begs two questions. One, the resources that are required to be mobilized for a presidential campaign, because the packaging of a political leader is absolutely important. That's number one. Number two, when I look at Kalonzo Musyoka, would you say, in your own opinion, that he's a consummate politician?
Yes.
Why?
Because if you look at his major decision making and choices he's made in the past, they are built around the organizational question of that particular election and the national interests of that particular election. And he has demonstrated that severally, at least with Baba's experience, 3 times, that he decided to support Baba.
That stands out. That one stands out, kabisa.
Yeah, so that's one example.
You see, I asked the question because when the man was given an opportunity to talk about Baba at the funeral,
yes,
in my opinion, that was an opportunity made in heaven for a politician. There is nobody who had that track record. Nobody could claim to have supported Baba as he did. Nobody. In my opinion, that was his moment in the sun to simply talk about the times that he and Baba had stood. Yes.
Yeah. So going back to your original question, consummate politicians.
Yes.
The choice he had there was that he was given 2 minutes. That in itself is an insult. That in itself goes to the heart of what is wrong with this regime. That they could behave in such a callous way that they can choose and pick who mourns Baba, how someone mourns Baba, for how long someone mourns Baba. So as a consummate politician, how did he use his 2 minutes? The first one is to give condolences to the family. The second one is to mourn with Kenyans. But the third and the most important was to also recognize the other opposition leaders who had been denied an opportunity to speak, including the Honorable Martha Karua, who was the running mate of Baba in 2022. Whatever they were doing is so sacrilegious at all levels, traditionally, religiously, state function, even statecraft. They've even failed that. City, you know that in 1974, when Mzee Jomo Kenyatta went into a coma for 5 days and woke up on the 6th day, Kenya developed a very detailed way of how to mourn a passing president or important person at the equivalence of the president. We have protocols of the church. We have all the if you are Muslim, the mosque. We have protocols of military. We have protocol of state. We have protocol of community. Why would people deploy anti-riot groups of security
on mourners,
and they tear gas Baba and his supporters? And you know that Honorable Buru was so pained, he had to observe that, and he said, "You tear gas my brother when he was alive, and now you tear gas him even when he's dead." Why would you give orders to shoot to kill at mourners? And then you say, we will compensate. What kind of nonsense is this? I'm sorry to use that language, but I'm saying he had that opportunity 2 minutes. What can he do in 2 minutes? But let me tell you,
I have a comment on that.
Yes,
Mheshimiwa. This is the situation, and we saw it. He wasn't given that time, whether it was by design.
In fact, the time was given is out of pressure by Kenyans on social media, when he was not denied to speak at Nyayo Stadium on the state funeral.
Right.
Yeah.
But Mheshimiwa, the Mheshimiwa Kalonzo has got the right to appear on other platforms. Eulogize Baba, mourn him. He could have appeared on any. He could have called even a press conference on any station.
I have an answer for that. He gave us very strict and specific instructions and say, how best do we mourn our departed hero?
Okay.
So he's going to make proposal to the country to mourn him long term, and to not only eulogize him, but to continue with the things that Baba championed.
Yeah.
So, for example, one of the things that he truly believes, and this goes back to our consummate politicians, is that you can't dictate to Kenyans on how to mourn Baba, right? So some of the ideas that he has told us to work on is to say, how do we inspire the nation and say all aspects of the nation, you take up the mantle and mourn Baba. And then on our side, for me as Kalonzo Musyoka, who has had a deep relationship with my departed brother and leader, this is how I'm going to mourn. He's going to tell the Kenyans, this is how I'm going to mourn. This is how I'm going to remember him. So he will unveil. It's not up to me to unveil those plans. It's up to him to unveil it.
Yeah,
but I can give you my word, he's going to do it.
My point was on, him being denied the time to mourn Baba publicly in the podiums that other leaders were given. But anyway,
but that one is important.
Yeah, it is.
Everybody who spoke, apart from Mr. Ruto, talked about real things that Baba cared about. Governance, corruption, rigging of elections, constitutionalism, the rule of law, devolution. From the bishop to Mama Ida to family members, all of them talked about the things that Baba cared about and wanted for this nation. It is only Mr. Ruto who went back to that mantra of peace, stability, togetherness, but he will not dare utter the word justice. Right? So this,
and yet all these people, none of them had politically supported Baba the way Kalonzo did.
Exactly.
None.
Exactly. The drawback there is that people are used to politicians who go on the rooftops. You saw how many people are saying, Baba, before he passed on, he talked to me and he said, I don't know ABC. But that's not the makeup of Kalonzo.
You see, the point I'm trying to make, Mheshimiwa, is that looks like an opportunity which was lost, because the entirety of the Kenyan nation, our neighbors, and people who take an interest in our politics, the emotions at that moment in time, the way everything about that moment is etched in people's minds, that was a moment for people to know what Kalonzo had done. Those who had never, anything that you do after that is important and it is good. But that particular moment, there is no other moment.
So
that was it.
So I will tell you how you define Kalonzo in relation to what you've just said. He said, under no circumstance should we try to take advantage of the passing on of my brother, my dear brother, and my departed leader. Time to talk about our relationship with Baba, our vision with Baba of going to Canaan. That journey is still going on. We're based on justice and principles. He said, the timing must be right. We cannot talk about that. Let us mourn first. Let us mourn. Let us respect the family. Let us respect the Luo traditions. Let us respect religious sentiments. The time is coming. Time. You know, City, you're familiar with the old man, Professor Ibrahim Husseini. Ibrahim Husseini has an artistic word called wakati ukuta. Time is a block that renders everybody equal. So that personally, I agree with my leader that trying to make hay out of the passing of Baba is wrong. Trying to leverage. There are certain sentiments that are required among the different Kenyan communities. They have certain sensibilities that there are certain things that are not done when the body is still not interred, when the official mourning period has not been respected. So that will come. I assure you.
I come from that community.
Yes.
And one of the things that is done in such an occasion where someone of the importance of Raila Odinga has passed on and funerals, there's a word we use, neno. People are always given an opportunity to talk about the person, because there'll be many mourners who have no idea about certain things. And it is one of those things that often breaks this rule of time that people have with funerals. When I've attended funerals of people who are elderly, it is known that when their contemporary speaking, you are not going to put a cap on the time. And it is very interesting, the things you get to hear about this person who has passed away. But as you say correctly, your leader had a plan. And again, one has to respect one's perspective, because I don't know Raila as he did. I do not know what they discussed. So when a man makes such a decision, there are probably many issues that none of us are aware of. So the decision is not in a vacuum. It is purposed and there's a reason behind it. So I will let that matter rest.
Yeah, I agree with you. And let me agree with what you said, which is how you package your message is absolutely critical. And we will do that, and we will get feedback from all Kenyans. And one of the other things that we will not try to do is to make His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka depart very much from the core essence and his integrity of who he is. There are certain things he likes to handle as a private citizen, but we keep on reminding him, you are no longer a private citizen. You are somebody who is in the public domain. He talks very little about his family. When we held the NDC, you saw a snippet of something that deeply moves him and inspires him, his relationship with his wife. He hardly talks much about that, except in rare occasions like when we had the NDC, when he was reflecting where he's come from, where he is now, and where he's going. He had to talk about a private aspect of his life. But to us who do strategic communication, we know that Kenyans would like to get as much information about him as possible. So to give them the comfort levels of saying, this is the leader we need. But let me finish by saying this. Even among his respected leaders, he's very, very much loved and esteemed as a uniter, as a consensus building one, as one who builds bridges, and that one who brings people together. Okay. You can't say you want him to be like Baba. There's no one like Baba. Okay,
he can only be like Kalonzo Musyoka.
Yes, except we invite many Kenyans to see the most important aspects of his life and his integrity, in terms of saying, for example, when you talked about fundraising, it's a valid question. How do we fundraise? The instructions he has given us is to develop a fundraising strategy that has the following components. He will not take money from criminal elements. You know, one of the most insidious aspects of politics and organizing of politics is criminal elements funding politics and then getting an arrangement that...
But Mheshimiwa, in Kenya, that's going to be a bit difficult, isn't it?
Yes.
Because most of our businessmen are criminals. So how
yes.
on earth... I'm talking about the really big mega ones.
Yes.
The way they go about
so
their
if you
business.
allowed me to finish, I said 5 things.
Yes.
One is we will not take money from criminal elements, and they'll tell you why we do it, because we will do due diligence and vetting. Okay? As you rightly say, even the drug dealers are known, right? So secondly, we will not take money that is harmful to society.
Explain that a bit, please.
Yes. So, for example, will we taking money from betting organizations? No. Will we take money from people who produce things that are harmful, particularly targeting the youth? No.
So you're saying that you're going to run a halal campaign?
Not a halal. It's called an integrity campaign.
Yeah. An ethical one.
Yes, an ethical one.
All right.
Okay. Thirdly, let me finish. Thirdly, we are going to balance between big contributors who are known and also focus on small contributors. Model around the Obama campaign, meaning that you go for small contributors, and people when we go for small contributors, they laugh and say, Kalonzo hana pesa. I thought that will be a credit that you have had this long career and you have not stolen from the public for you to have billions to spend. Number 4, we are going to focus on crowdsourcing and also, more importantly, civic agency. And then number 5, we are going to try and use interventions that don't require a lot of money.
Okay.
So, for example, one of the biggest chunk of investments is on an anti-rigging agent system. Most of the time that has failed because we control it from Nairobi and we want to spend $1 billion. Say, no, we have structures all the way to the polling station. Let's use those structures. We don't have to pay for those structures because those are our members in the party and collectively on the collective united opposition. So it is possible to develop an objective criterion of fundraising without the elements of criminality in it. Although one unfortunate thing, and you know this city, is that we have had a Finance Campaign Act that is 4 or 5 years, but it is limited in its operations. Because those who make that law, if they were to make it foolproof, it will also limit them as well. So in essence, what we can't compete with a regime that has stolen trillions from the people is money. So if you ask us to compete on dollar for dollar, we can't compete. We need to compete in different strategic ways. Yeah.
What would you say to people who are saying that currently the united opposition is clueless? There's no specific direction apart from the sloganeering of Wantam and Ruto must go. Like there's nothing tangible beyond that slogan.
I think that is a bum rap. As Americans will say, it's an unfair characterization. Do I sound clueless?
You sound clueful.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So people are attacking us unfairly. But let me give you an example of some of the things that we have said that no one can characterize with that word.
Okay.
Yeah, we have said that in the classical storytelling, it's said that if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. Right? Does this regime look like it is stop digging? No. Every day it comes up with new cuckoo ideas. 4 million chapatis. And then people forget about those 4 million chapatis. Where you have not even delivered the capitation for schools. You're talking about cuckoo ideas of 4 million chapatis. We have invented machines of making 4 million. I mean, if there was one country that was to invent a chapati making machine, it will be India or Pakistan, not Kenya. You know. So they
actually do have those machines in those countries.
No.
Even China has those machines.
Those machines in small scale. But they're talking about a machine making 4 million chapatis in Nairobi, 4 million in another city. So you're talking about 40 million in a population of 56 million.
But Mheshimiwa, can't you see the benefit? Everybody can eat chapati.
Including babies who are suffering from malnutrition.
That is the
So, but I'm telling you. So that's number one. Number two, we have said we will remove through an executive orders every bad idea that has come with this regime. Every bad idea that can be removed by executive authority.
How will you decide on how bad or which ideas are bad? How are you going to decide that?
You know, just listen to Kenyans, right? Kenyans are saying, justify to us why you have a housing levy. A housing levy that is applied to land that does not belong to government. Land that belongs to county governments. A housing levy that does not buy you equity. Yeah, you are building a private property that government is going to sell at a profit. Why would you be doing that? Well, that's a crazy idea.
Okay.
Let me give you another example. An executive order implementing all court orders, except in situation where you don't agree with that court order, you review it in the courts. You go to the courts to review it. What is so bad about implementing court orders? Let me give you an example. Many of the people who are detained, including Jacom, many of the people who are detained, a number of them went to court and sued the government. And the courts agreed with them and provided relief to these people.
Yes.
The government has refused to implement those court orders. Do you have to be completely a neurosurgeon to know that you can, with a stroke of a pen, implement those court orders?
some of the people who were indeed jailed with Jacom in those early, there are people who actually did get paid. Not all.
Many of them have not seen the money.
Yes. The point you make is a valid one.
Yeah.
But this particular government campaigned on similar promises. I will do away with this, Harambes. I will do away with this. Everything that probably to the last T that they said they will remove, they have proceeded not only to do, but to make it even grander. Telling us what is wrong doesn't move the needle. We live here, we can see. The interest, you talk about the public, is in what are you going to do? Beyond removing what you think is bad, what is this roadmap that you have? What is this economic structure that you're going to come up with that will remove us from this dire situation that we find ourselves in?
Some of these things, City, are not rocket science. That if you look at the history of humankind, all over the world, where there's been great destruction, it is followed by stabilization, restoration, reconstruction. It doesn't matter if it's the First World War or the Second World War, or after the Civil War in the United States, or under natural catastrophe, even earthquake or floods. It follows the same patterns. The architecture is simple. The creativity comes in the nuances and the design for specific solutions for people. So I'll tell you simple things. The taxation regime is such that it does not promote investments in Kenya. And the cost of doing business is such that people are leaving Kenya. They're going to set up business in Uganda and Tanzania. People have had to declare bankruptcy. Why? Because there are so many pending bills. They have provided services and goods on good faith, taking loans. They have to pay interest, and their businesses go under. So, developing a credible stimulus package, economic and social stimulus package, is an obvious choice. But you don't push that agenda to people. You sit down with workers, you sit down with investors, you sit down with business and negotiate what kind of stimulus package that is required. You saw recently they were questioned on kazi kwa vijana, and they want to return it, but they were running all over the country calling it names.
My point exactly.
Yeah, and I'm going to answer your question. One of this is the question of the gap of credibility. Politicians have been at it for so long. That's why I'm saying if you take somebody like His Excellency SKM, you will then say, what did he do in Burundi? Actual things that he did. What did he do in East Africa? What did he do in the Sudan? What did he do in Somalia? What did he do in his own constituency? And we are happy to be examined on our track record. But let me tell you this. There are 4 things that are going to determine this election. City. One is hopelessness. People are hopeless. And what we are offering, we are going to communicate to them a credible framework of hope. 2 is the question of trust. There is a deficit of trust, right? So we are going to work on that trust. And we are going to demonstrate this before the election. So you judge SKM by the team he puts around him. I'll give you names of other people you'll invite who work with us in the team.
That you should do.
I will do. I will give you names and you will bring them here and you will listen. What have you done? We have Kenyans from the diaspora doing amazing things. Did you know that City, there is a group of Kenyan in the diaspora who are building a complete university city in Taita Taveta?
I have heard of that university.
Yes.
I've heard of the plan.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah. So we'll bring people like that. We have
have they built it?
No. They are going on because they bought the land. They have done the plans. they are going through the portfolio of investing. And it's not a university, it's a university city. Like all important universities that are built around a city that is an ecosystem for intellectual pursuit, but also for offering research and solutions for our country. There are certain basic things that are so out there. Let me give you another example on the diaspora community, the Kenyan diaspora community. One of the things that is consistent, you go abroad and they tell you Kenyans are very hardworking, Kenyans are innovative, Kenyans are doing all these things. Now, a Kenyan diaspora wants to send money to family as one of the few remaining safety nets for Kenyans. That Kenyan pay taxes where they are. Say, take for example USA. They pay taxes in USA, and the current president in the USA has also added another levy for capital transfer to Kenya. And then in Kenya they also tax it. What kind of madness is that? Who does that?
The Bretton Woods institutions do that.
No, I mean those are Washington consensus-based institutions. We are not saying we will not deal with them. We will, but their philosophy and their vision is very different from our own. So let me talk about that and say to you that a Kenyan runner goes and wins a marathon, gets $1 million. They want to bring that $1 million here.
Yes.
That $1 million is already taxed there.
Yes.
And then you have double taxation for this.
Yes.
Who wants to bring money.
Again, the answer is yes.
The answer is crazy. In my opinion, yes, it is crazy. So these are what some people call low-hanging fruits. You know, see, I was at EALA.
Yes.
And we passed a law against double taxation. So whatever Kenya is doing is against that East African Community law on double taxation. Right? So you can take them to the East African Court of Justice and implement it.
Mheshimiwa, the point you make is a valid one.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking about piecemeal solutions that one points out as examples. I'm talking about an economic framework.
An economic framework, yes.
That's what I'm talking about. Where you tell us, under this framework, we will look at this and this and this. Then the examples that you make now make sense. Because we understand with the framework, so we have a clear idea of the way forward.
It's not just a framework, it's a visioning aspect, right? So I'm agreeing with you, long-term visioning. So what is our visioning? Our visioning is 2010 Constitution. The Constitution of Kenya has the economic model that we should be following. It even has principles of budgeting, right? And what you can do with the budgets and what you cannot do with budgets. What has happened is the refusal for the proper implementation of the Constitution of Kenya 2010.
Mheshimiwa, if we get to 2027,
yes,
and
by then all these frameworks that my brother City is talking about, they'll be out there for public scrutiny. We will have an election campaign platform that has a complete vision for this country, but the underpinning vision document is the implementation with fidelity of the 2010 Constitution.
So if we get to 2027 and
yes,
Kenyans decide to continue with the rule of President Ruto, what next?
That's why I'm telling you, those who, that is wishful thinking, because human nature abhors deliberately harming yourself, generally speaking. And I don't think Kenyans would want to harm themselves. The existential threat that Mr. Ruto and his regime poses against the Kenyan people is of such magnitude that if he's doing these things in first term, what is he going to do in the second term? So if you take your personal family as an example, you sit down over dinner table and you say, how many people support this regime? There's no one in my family. who does that. In my extended family, there's no one. In my neighborhood, there's only one house out of 300 that are supporting Ruto. So I don't know where.
And you know the house.
I don't know. We have meetings, neighborhood meetings, and we talk about these things.
Okay.
So I don't know where they are going to get the numbers from. That's why I said one of the scenario was rigging. I was going to the third scenario. And we got digressed a bit. The third scenario is a change scenario. And for us, it's a change, a fundamental change. And that's where we will have those details. For example, you will not be very smart if you don't start thinking about a supplementary budget immediately you come into office. You have to have a supplementary budget to reverse some of these harmful things that they've done and to allocate resources to quick gains in terms of society. And there are certain assumptions of this visioning. Let me give you two examples. The first one has to do with health. A fundamental principle of health in the 2010 Constitution is preventive medicine. There's a fundamental principle there that invest in sanitation, invest in potable, safe water, invest in mapping local needs. That's why health is a devolved function, right? The courts have ruled that health is a devolved function. The courts have ruled this procurement of equipment by national government is unconstitutional and illegal. So some of these things you just implement the law, implement the court decisions. And if you allowed for mapping, in places where for example, there is sleeping sickness. Not everywhere in Kenya we have sleeping sickness. So their needs there are how to address the question of standing water and reproduction of these insects that causes this and so on, or even sleeping under treated nets. So the idea of local communities defining their own priorities is fundamental in our thinking. So it's not empty promises, City. There are three things that are interconnected, and if we are able to achieve them, people will believe us. One, we must start doing these things now, not wait for 2027. That's why we've established the People's Restorative Justice Commission. The commission is working. It's taking submissions from Kenyans. It has public hearings. It's going on with its activities, and it's mapping out where priorities will be done in terms of addressing historical injustices. That is ongoing. It's not theory. There's a commission, there are commissioners who have been sworn in, and they are meeting and working with communities. Secondly, how we organize our campaigns.
These commissioners, are they government employees?
No.
They are party employees?
No.
Or is it voluntary?
It's mainly voluntary, but it has that name, people, city. I'll give you two examples again when you raise something like that. One, when we established the People's Commission in Fungamano on Constitutional Review, I was a commissioner there. We were not paid. We did this pro bono in public interest and public good, right? We were only being facilitated to do the work. That led into people sitting down and merging and forming CKRC. That's how I got into CKRC. The idea of Article 1 being sovereignty of the people came from Fungamano. It didn't come from government commissioners, right? But that didn't stop us working together with our brothers and sisters who we found there, right? Let me give you another example. Today in Kenya, there are two human rights commissions. There is a People's Civil Society-based Kenya Human Rights Commission, and there is a Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. Studies have been done. People prefer to go to the people-based, civil society-based commission rather than going to the government one. And that has a historical context, but it has also the perceptions of people saying you can't get justice from the government one. So what are we looking out for, which is number 3, is to say, judge His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka on the teams he built around him, on the advisors that he appointed around him, and many others. that we will be doing now.
It is a valid point, and indeed we should. You see, everything that you say, as I said, makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. There's always this particular chink in this armor that we speak of. How do we get people to be on the same platform as you? Our constitution gave us independent commissions. Independent.
Yes. Yes.
They were supposed to give us a secondary level of accountability.
Absolutely.
We've seen how that has gone, haven't we?
Yeah. And in places like ours, jurisdictions that have had challenges such as ours, they have established state capture investigations. This regime came and said, we are going to institute a state capture.
You know the thing that I find interesting, it's not this regime, it's the other regime that started all this. I cannot...
The other regime say, we are going to do investigation of state capture. They didn't. This one promised people and said, we are going to investigate.
The state capture that we speak of was instituted
Yeah.
and entrenched in that regime, and we have a president who was a deputy in that particular regime. When I look at what it is that was purposed, and I'm glad we have them. The reason why I'm glad we have them is because they're a permanent reference point, and in the absence, there are certain discussions we would not be able to have. But look at the time when we're implementing the Constitution. The very commission that was supposed to help the CIC, God Almighty, we had a problem right there. The two institutions that were supposed to guide this process. How on earth can you have a commission that's supposed to help implement the Constitution? This is my view. Have just a 5-year term. How?
Okay. So as one of the crafters of our Constitution, I'll give you an explanation. One of the poorly drafted chapter in the Constitution is what we are calling the transitional and consequential provisions. There's a chapter called that.
Yes, and there was that transitional
and the consequential.
Yeah.
So that chapter is not very particularly elegantly drafted.
Why?
I'll explain again. So if you give me an opportunity. What happened was the commission was also divided into two broad groups. Those who don't want change and those who want change.
So what on earth were they doing in that commission if they were that way divided?
That's how our society is divided.
The entire discussion was about change.
Absolutely. And we managed.
Then you have reactionary people.
And we managed to do that. Now, a third of the delegates at the Constitutional Conference were members of parliament.
Okay.
Yeah. A third.
You've explained it.
Yeah. So, no, but I'll go further.
I need no further. Once you say a third were parliamentarians,
yeah,
I have understood.
Yeah. So, the things that they were passing, and that you can see in the framework of what was envisaged as the implementation framework. We pushed for a very detailed constitution. They pushed for a common law approach to constitution making, which says deal with principles and leave to the legislative arms of government, meaning themselves, to implement those aspects. And that explains to you why we have a terrible, almost impossible to implement the recall provision.
So we were going to put the fox in charge of the hen house.
Exactly.
I see.
Exactly. So
and the chicken was supposed to be safe.
So no. City, you need to understand this. And many of these compromises were done in Naivasha among so-called elite consensus. So the Constitution, broadly speaking, contains three broad aspects. One, by the people. Those ones are excellent by the people. Two, this so-called elite consensus. It doesn't matter if it was done in Kilifi or in Naivasha. But the third one was based on these two interventions, they are consequential aspects. So let me give you a few of those. One of them is the recall,
and we have a minute to go.
The recall clause.
Yeah.
But let me use my minute in a more constructive way. Change city. Change is necessary.
Yeah.
Change is inevitable.
Correct.
And change is coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa. We've actually had a very interesting conversation as far as policy and policy making is concerned, and perhaps where we have gotten it wrong in the past, and what we might have failed to capture is how we're going to change it in the future. What I will do is I'll invite you back.
I'll be happy to come.
And there's some names you've said you will share with us.
Yes.
Hizo tutakwambia kuja na wao.
Yeah.
So that we can have a detailed conversation as far as that is concerned.
Absolutely.
But thank you so much for finding time to be here with us.
Thank you.
Especially on a Monday.
Thank you.
Yeah, so tunasema karibu tena na tena.
Asante.
For the rest of us, tunasema kwaheri bana. See you tomorrow morning bright and early at exactly 6 a.m. City, sema kwaheri bwana.
Kwaheri bwana.
All right. Mheshimiwa kwaheri.
Kwaheri bwana, kuonana.